Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lesson 66. Today, we are using our time machines to talk about yesterday. But first, subscribe to our channel.
Hi, guys. Yes, subscribe. My time machine is broken. I don't remember yesterday.
Don't worry, Lucas. I remember exactly where you were. Grab your notebooks, put down the cake, and get ready to pause, write, repeat,
Right. Okay.
and scene. Welcome to the deep dive, everyone.
Yeah, welcome.
What you just heard was the actual verbatim opening to the source material we are looking at today. It is a level A1 English lesson script, officially titled Lesson 66.
Which, A1 just means absolute beginner.
Right, people who are literally just starting out.
Exactly. And on the surface, if you just casually glance at this script, it looks like a completely standard run-of-the-mill grammar guide.
Yeah, just teaching the past simple tense of the verb to be. So specifically the words was and were.
But if you look closer, it is a masterclass in psychology. It uses this really compelling narrative and character dynamics and gamification.
It's like a bizarre psychological experiment.
It really is. We usually think of language learning as this very sterile academic thing, right?
Yeah, totally.
Like you sit in a bright room, you stare at a whiteboard, you memorize grids of irregular verbs until your brain hurts.
Oh, I remember doing that in high school. It was awful.
Right. But human brains did not evolve to memorize grids. They evolved to track social dynamics. We are hardwired to care about gossip. Who's cheating the system? Who is lying?
Who is getting caught eating a giant chocolate cake?
Exactly. And this lesson taps right into that primal love for gossip to trick the adult brain into learning complex grammar.
So let's talk about how it actually pulls this off, because it lays down this literal foundation before the grammar instruction even begins.
Yeah, segment 1.
Right, segment 1, it's a highly restricted vocabulary list. It isolates exactly 6 concepts. That's it.
6.
2 time markers, today and yesterday. 2 locations, at the gym and at the bakery. And 2 physical states, tired and hungry.
It is a mathematically precise list. And to understand why that's so effective, we have to talk about cognitive load theory.
Oh, John Sweller's stuff from the 80s.
Yeah, exactly. When you're teaching an absolute beginner, cognitive load is your biggest enemy.
Because your working memory is so limited.
Right. If you give a beginner a list of, 20 random vocabulary words to memorize before introducing a new grammar rule, their working memory just overflows.
They just drown in the data.
Completely drown. So by restricting the prerequisite knowledge to just 6 really relatable human experiences.
Like being tired or hungry.
Yeah, everyone knows what that feels like.
Mm.
It ensures that the learner's cognitive bandwidth is preserved for the actual grammar mechanic that comes next.
It's also striking how these 6 words set up these stark binary contrasts.
Oh, the contrasts are great.
You have the temporal one, obviously, present versus past, today versus yesterday. But then you have this incredible spatial contrast.
The gym versus the bakery.
Right. It's almost a moral contrast. You have physical exertion and discipline at the gym directly opposed to, culinary indulgence at the bakery.
The asceticism of the gym versus the hedonism of the bakery. It sets up an immediate psychological tension.
And the physical states map onto those locations perfectly. Gym equals tired. Bakery equals hungry. Or, well, the bakery is the glorious solution to being hungry.
Yeah, it's a very efficient use of vocabulary to build this tiny, self-contained universe.
But wait, let me push back on this from a pure survival standpoint.
Okay, lay it on me.
If I'm an absolute beginner and I am about to be dropped into a foreign city, my primary concern is survival, right?
Sure.
I need to know how to ask for a hospital or a bathroom or maybe just a generic word like store.
Right.
So why is this lesson wasting precious cognitive space on a luxury word like bakery? Doesn't that limit the student's practical utility?
That is a phenomenal question. And it actually strikes at the heart of this huge historical debate in language pedagogy.
Really?
Yeah. For decades, the prevailing wisdom was exactly what you just said. Teach the most frequent, broad, utilitarian words first.
Like store.
Like store. But the rationale for choosing bakery over store is deeply tied to the neuroscience of memory.
Okay.
Specifically, the difference between semantic memory and episodic memory.
Right. Let's clarify that distinction for everyone. Semantic versus episodic.
So semantic memory is your brain's database of raw facts. It's where you store the knowledge that Paris is the capital of France, or that a store is a commercial building.
It's logical, but it's cold.
Exactly. It's sterile. Episodic memory, on the other hand, is autobiographical. It's tied to sensory experiences, emotions, specific events.
So when you hear a generic word like store, your brain just conjures up a blank gray box.
Right. Zero emotional resonance. But when you hear the word
Oh, your
bakery,
brain instantly fires up?
exactly, the olfactory bulb, which processes smell, has a direct neural pathway to the emotion and memory centers of the brain.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so just reading the word bakery can trigger the phantom smell of fresh bread or the visual of powdered sugar.
The warmth of the ovens.
Exactly. The lesson is deliberately tapping in to episodic sensory recall. It anchors the foreign word to a rich sensory network, making it stick exponentially faster than a sterile word like store.
That is fascinating. It's like hacking the brain's filing system by putting a brighter, louder label on the file.
It really is.
And looking ahead at how this script unfolds, this vocabulary list is clearly planting the seeds for the narrative drama.
Oh, totally. They aren't just random words.
Right. They are the exact props being placed on the stage before the curtain goes up. If you introduce a bakery and the concept of hunger in the first 5 minutes, someone is inevitably going to eat a pastry by the end of the lesson.
Is the Chekhov's gun of grammar instruction. Nothing is wasted.
Okay, so setting the scene with a bakery and a gym anchors the student in physical reality. But reality isn't just space, it's time.
Right. And here comes the hard part.
Exactly. If an adult learner's working memory is already operating at near capacity, just remembering these sensory words, how do you get them to mentally leap backward in time to yesterday without triggering a panic attack over verb conjugations?
This is where the lesson introduces its core mechanical framework. Segment 2.
The grammar focus.
Yes. It explicitly frames the act of changing the present tense verbs am, is, and are into the past tense as operating a time machine.
A time machine. It's so good it gives two strict rules for this machine.
Right. Bucket A and bucket B.
Rule 1.
Yeah.
If the subject is I, he, she, or it, you pull the lever marked was, W-A-S, was.
Got to hear that S sound clearly.
Exactly. And rule 2, if the subject is you, we, or they, you pull the lever marked were, W-E-R-E, were.
Nice strong R sound there.
Yes. And then it gives a diagnostic test to show the machine working. Today, I am at home, runs through the machine and becomes, yesterday, I was at home.
And today they are hungry becomes yesterday they were hungry.
We really have to pause and appreciate the pedagogical brilliance of that specific metaphor.
Because the verb to be is notoriously irregular.
It's a nightmare. In linguistics, it's due to suppletion.
Right, where over thousands of years of evolution, entirely different root verbs are mashed together into one paradigm.
Which is why am, are, and is look nothing alike. To an adult trying to find a logical pattern, it defies logic.
If a textbook says, today we are learning the past simple indicative of the highly irregular copular verb to be,
You immediately alienate 90% of your classroom.
the anxiety spikes. But framing it as a time machine turns a dry linguistic rule into a sci-fi action.
It gives the learner physical agency. You're not just passively submitting to illogical history. You are the pilot operating a mechanism to travel backwards in time.
It's a conceptual metaphor, using something physical to understand something abstract.
I love the idea of it being a physical mechanism. When I look at these two levers, the was lever and the were lever, it really reminds me of learning to drive a manual transmission car.
Oh, I like that. Walk me through that analogy.
Well, think about the very first time you sit behind the wheel of a stick shift. You are overwhelmed.
Sweating.
You have to consciously think about every single micro movement. It's pure declarative memory. You're telling yourself, okay, foot off the gas, push the clutch pedal to the floor, move the gear stick, slowly release the clutch.
And you're stalling out in the middle of intersections.
Exactly. You cannot listen to the radio. You cannot talk to the passenger. The cognitive load is maxed out.
And in language learning, a beginner trying to speak in the past tense is doing the exact same thing.
Yes, they're speaking, and suddenly they want to talk about yesterday, and their brain completely stalls out. They have to pause and run the mental checklist.
Wait, I want to say where my brother was. My brother is a he. Does he use the was lever or the were lever?
Okay, rule 1 says was. It is a clunky, exhausting mechanical process, but eventually, after you stall the car a few hundred times, something shifts.
You don't think about the clutch anymore.
You just drive. You're talking to your passenger, listening to music, shifting gears automatically.
That is a phenomenal analogy because it perfectly describes the neurological shift from declarative memory, which is slow and conscious, to procedural memory.
Which is fast and unconscious.
Right, handled by the basal ganglia. The ultimate goal of this lesson is to get the student's grammar into the basal ganglia, to get them from stalling to driving smoothly.
But let me challenge the specific design of this engine, because something about creating these buckets, bucket A for was and bucket B for were, feels counterintuitive.
How so?
Doesn't creating these meta categories just add another layer of abstract math to the process? Like, first categorize the pronoun, then apply the verb. Why not just teach the phrases individually by rote? I was, you were, he was. Just memorize the pairs.
That is a very common objection. And to understand why it uses buckets, we have to look at the difference between how children acquire language and how adults learn it.
Okay.
A child learns language through massive unstructured exposure over years. They just absorb I was because they hear it 10,000 times.
They're statistical learning sponges.
Exactly. But adults do not have the time for 10,000 natural exposures. And more importantly, the adult brain is a relentless pattern-seeking machine.
We crave order. We want the shortcut.
We desperately crave order. If you just give an adult a list of phrases to memorize, their brain will inevitably try to deduce the underlying mathematical pattern anyway,
And because English is so irregular, they might deduce the wrong pattern.
leading to fossilized errors that are incredibly hard to unlearn later. By explicitly stating, here is bucket A and here's bucket B, you give the adult brain the precise blueprint it's already looking for.
It lowers their cognitive anxiety. You do not need to guess. Here's the reliable algorithm.
Let's actually map out the mental gymnastics an A1 learner goes through using the text's exact example, shifting he is tired to he was tired in slow motion.
Let's do it. Let's see every gear turning in the brain.
Okay, step 1. The learner forms the target thought, which is expressing male exhaustion in the past. Step 2. They identify the correct pronoun, he.
Step 3, they access their present tense knowledge. He is tired.
Step 4. They recognize the temporal marker that requires a shift. Yesterday. Step 5. They activate the time machine algorithm. Does he belong to rule 1 or rule 2?
Step 6. They identify bucket A, rule 1. Step 7. They apply the conversion, mapping is to was.
And step 8. They finally send the signal to their motor cortex to articulate the sentence. He was tired.
And all of that is supposed to happen in the fraction of a second between words in a normal conversation.
It's a staggering amount of computational power.
It really highlights how miraculous it is that anyone ever learns to speak a second language fluently.
Right. And the buckets act as a cognitive shortcut to make step 5 much faster than randomly searching through a mental list.
Okay, so the mechanics are sound, we have the sensory vocabulary, we have the time machine rules. If the lesson just stopped there, it would be an adequate but very dry manual.
But it doesn't stop there.
No, it takes that time machine and immediately drops it into a high-stakes, deeply human social situation.
Which brings us to the narrative application.
Yeah.
Segment 3, story time.
Ugh, the gym lie. This is where the script reveals its true genius. Let's set the stage here. We have two characters.
The stage directions are so good, they're sitting together drinking coffee.
And the guy initiates the conversation by loudly claiming that he was at the gym yesterday, and he really sells it.
Oh, he completely overcompensates. I was at the gym, running, lifting weights. I was very tired.
Look at you, flexing your muscles right now.
I'm just getting into character.
Yeah.
He's establishing this macho persona built entirely on vanity.
Right. And then you have the other character, who has clearly been waiting for this exact moment. She reveals she saw him at the bakery.
Eating a very big chocolate cake.
His entire facade crumbles. He panics. He starts sweating, turning red.
And in sheer desperation, he claims that eating cake is hard work, and he was exercising his mouth.
Exercising his mouth, it's an absolutely phenomenal piece of microfiction. It achieves more pedagogical heavy lifting than 30 pages of a textbook.
Let's talk about the character dynamic, because it's crucial to how the language is absorbed. You have the guy puffing out his chest.
And directly contrasting that fragile ego, you have the other character. The text describes her demeanor as sarcastic. She raises a single eyebrow.
She's totally unbothered.
She takes a slow sip of her coffee and smiles a very big smile before she springs her trap. She is entirely in control of the power dynamic.
The pacing of her dialogue is amazing.
It is. When he finishes bragging, she doesn't just yell, "You liar, I saw you eating cake." She draws the tension out. She says, "That is very interesting because yesterday I was at the bakery."
It's like watching a classic TV detective.
Yes, she's like Columbo in a trench coat or Hercule Poirot. She doesn't interrogate him directly. She lets his own ego build the trap, and then she quietly closes the door on him.
And we have to look at the grammatical function of that dramatic irony.
Right, because the audience knows something the character doesn't.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The learner listening to this track knows what's happening. They see the trap being set. They're leaning in, waiting for the exact moment the macho guy gets caught.
And while their conscious brain is focused on the social drama, their subconscious brain is passively absorbing the target grammar.
I was at the gym, you were at the gym, I was at the bakery.
The repetition of the rules is completely hidden inside the narrative tension. It makes me think of trying to give medicine to a dog.
Okay, I love this. Explain.
If you just hold out a bitter pill, the dog is going to spit it out. But if you wrap that pill in a giant spoonful of peanut butter...
They swallow it whole.
Exactly. They are so intensely focused on the delicious treat that they swallow the medicine without even realizing it. The gossip, the drama, the lie that is the peanut butter.
And the was and were rules are the pill.
Exactly.
That is a brilliant analogy. And there's a robust scientific framework backing up why the peanut butter approach is necessary.
Oh, really?
Yeah. In the 80s, a linguist named Stephen Krashen introduced the concept of the affective filter.
The affective filter, how does that operate in the brain?
Think of it as a literal neurological shield that sits over the language acquisition center of your brain.
Okay.
When a student is anxious, intimidated, or stressed, like when they're staring at a terrifying grid of verb conjugations, the amygdala signals danger.
And the shield goes up.
Right. The affective filter is high. The language input hits the shield and just bounces off. They might memorize the rule for a test, but deep long-term acquisition does not occur.
The brain is too busy defending itself to learn.
Exactly. But when a student is amused, when they're relaxed, laughing at a ridiculous story about a guy exercising his mouth on a chocolate cake,
the amygdala downregulates.
The anxiety plummets, the neurological shield comes down, the affective filter is low, and their retention of the embedded grammar skyrockets.
The story actively optimizes the brain's chemistry to receive the grammar.
Yes.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second. We are talking about absolute beginners. These are people struggling to formulate a single sentence. Is there a genuine risk that layering on all this narrative flair, the sarcasm, the muscle flexing, the coffee sipping, actually overloads their processing power? Does the joke get in the way of the data?
It's a valid concern, and it's why traditional methods preferred sterile sentences like, the book is on the table.
Right, simple.
But modern evolutionary psychology suggests the exact opposite. Robin Dunbar, an anthropologist, proposed the social brain hypothesis.
Which argues what?
That human intelligence evolved primarily to keep track of complex social relationships. We are biologically hardwired to pay attention to social transgressions. Who is lying? Who is trustworthy?
So tracking a lie is actually a more natural cognitive state than tracking where a book is located.
Exactly. A sterile sentence about a book provides zero emotional arousal. The brain tags it as unimportant. But a story about social embarrassment, the brain tags that as critical survival information.
That is absolutely brilliant. The story provides the emotional hook. It lowers the affective filter. It delivers the bitter grammar pill inside the peanut butter of gossip.
But the lesson doesn't just let the student passively listen to a funny story and walk away.
Passive listening is only half the battle.
Right. It immediately forces the learner to actively produce the language they just heard in a highly structured way.
Which brings us to the final phase of the lesson architecture, the interactive gamification. Segment 4.
The time machine game.
It's structured as a rapid-fire translation drill with 4 distinct progressive rounds.
Let's break down the mechanics.
One character acts as the game master, providing a prompt in English, asking how to translate a present tense idea into the past, and the other character, acting as the proxy for the student, provides the correct answer using the time machine rules.
The scaffolding of these 4 rounds is meticulously designed.
Yeah.
It aligns perfectly with what Lev Vygotsky called the zone of proximal development.
You have to challenge the learner just enough to induce growth, but not so much that you induce frustration.
Exactly. So round 1 starts with the easiest possible lob. First-person perspective. The prompt is, how do you say, I am at the gym today, in the past?
And the response is, use the time machine. I was at the gym yesterday.
It's simple, direct, establishes the baseline using bucket A. Builds immediate confidence.
Then round 2 shifts perspective. You are at the bakery. And the response is, remember to use were. You were at the bakery.
We've crossed over from bucket A to bucket B. The learner has to pull the other lever.
Round 3 escalates again, testing the third person. He is very tired, response. He needs some sleep. He was very tired.
They were continually adding slight variations to the required output.
It honestly feels exactly like playing a well-designed video game. Specifically, the final boss battle.
How do you mean?
Think about the level design in a classic game like Super Mario.
Okay, classic.
Level 1 teaches you how to jump. Level 2 teaches you how to run. Level 3 teaches you how to duck. They isolate the skills.
Right.
But the final boss battle with Bowser doesn't let you use just one skill. It forces you to run, jump, and duck all at the same time in rapid succession to survive.
I see.
You have to synthesize all the isolated skills you learned in the safer levels. That is exactly what this 4-round game is doing. Round 1 is the jump, round 2 is the run, round 3 is the duck.
And then round 4 is the climax where it all comes together.
And round 4 is truly spectacular because it completely shatters the fourth wall.
It is so meta. The game master asks, as part of the formal drill, and where was he really yesterday?
And the guy yells out, "I am caught. You was eating chocolate cake."
Suddenly, the subjects of the grammatical test are actively participating in the narrative of the test.
The characters in the drill are aware of their own fictional universe.
It's a masterful merger of the mechanical grammar drill with a narrative punchline. But beyond the humor, what I find most linguistically valuable are the conversational fillers used right before the correct grammatical answer.
You mean those little interjections, like use the time machine or he needs some sleep?
Exactly. In traditional language drills, the audio is typically just a sterile, robotic voice. I was at the gym, you at the bakery.
It sounds completely unnatural.
It strips the language of its humanity. By inserting these emotional, conversational fillers, the lesson is implicitly teaching something far more complex than verb conjugation. It's teaching prosody.
Prosody, the rhythm and melody of speech.
Yes, the natural intonation, the stress patterns, the pacing of spoken English. Furthermore, by having the learner listen to these phrases aloud, and presumably mimicking them, it engages entirely different neurological pathways.
Because reading a rule silently just engages visual processing.
Right. But speaking aloud engages Broca's area in the frontal lobe, which coordinates the physical motor functions of the mouth, tongue, and vocal cords.
It takes language out of the realm of abstract thought and turns it into a physical, embodied action. It provides the musicality of the language, not just the lyrics.
Beautifully put. It teaches the learner that this isn't just a math equation on paper. It's a living, breathing tool used by humans who have reactions and emotions and defensive outbursts when caught eating cake.
And we also see the principle of productive failure at play here.
Oh, Dad.
If a learner attempts to answer the prompt before the audio gives the answer, they might make a mistake. They might pull the wrong lever. But because the audio immediately follows up with the highly energized, correct answer, the feedback loop is instantaneous.
The brain registers the error, corrects the algorithm, and moves to the next round without lingering on the anxiety of failure.
Pulling back from the microscopic details of this specific script, we can really appreciate the grand architectural arc of what the educational designers built here.
It's brilliant.
It moves flawlessly from raw, isolated sensory vocabulary to manage cognitive load, to the metaphorical scaffolding of the time machine, to an emotionally resonant narrative that lowers the affective filter, and finally to an interactive, gamified application that physicalizes the language.
It is a complete masterclass in the psychology of learning. The true genius of Lesson 66 isn't that it teaches was and were.
Any dry textbook from the 50s can do that.
Right. The genius is that it packages a mundane linguistic shift into a highly memorable, entertaining narrative about human vanity, chocolate cake, and the universal embarrassment of getting caught in a stupid lie.
And the practical application of this deep dive extends far beyond just language acquisition.
Absolute.
Whether you are actively trying to learn Spanish yourself, or you are a corporate manager trying to train your employees on a complex new software system.
Or just trying to explain a dense political history to a friend over dinner.
Exactly. Remember the mechanics we explored today? Remember the affective filter? Remember the time machine metaphor? Framing dry, abstract information inside a relatable, humorous human narrative is the ultimate vehicle for memory.
Stories are not just entertainment. They are the fundamental mechanism by which our brains process and retain reality. Humans are storytelling primates. If you want someone to remember the data, you have to give them the gossip.
Which leaves us with a final, provocative thought to mull over as we wrap up today.
Let's hear it.
Think about the very first phrases or words you ever successfully learned and retained in a foreign language. Maybe from a high school class years ago or a trip abroad.
Yeah, think back to that moment.
Did you learn those words through rote memorization, staring blankly at a chalkboard? Or were they permanently etched into your brain because they were tied to a specific story?
Like a moment of deep, profound embarrassment when you accidentally ordered the wrong horrifying item off a menu.
Yes, or a moment of massive triumph when you successfully asked for directions and actually found the train station. The context in which we acquire language is never emotionally neutral.
It always carries the psychological baggage of the moment we learned it.
Exactly. And it makes you wonder, how much does the specific context in which we learn a language ultimately shape the new personality we adopt when we speak it?
Oh, that's interesting.
There's the idea of linguistic relativity, the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, that suggests the language we speak shapes how we think. But perhaps the way we learn the language shapes who we become in that language. If you learn English through stories of sarcastic, observant detectives cornering macho, overconfident guys eating chocolate cake, does a little bit of that specific humor, that exact flavor of sarcasm, become a permanent, hardwired part of your English-speaking identity?
It is definitely something to seriously think about the next time you step into a classroom.
Or a bakery? And on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive. Where were you yesterday? Were you at home? Were you at work? Or were you at the bakery like Lucas? Tell us in the comments using was and where. See you next time. Bye.